Everybody, welcome into the Dog Nation post-game show, our first for the 2020 season, presented this year by the UGA bookstore. So happy to be with you. I'm a lot happier to be with you now than I probably thought I was going to be a few minutes ago when things were not looking great for the Georgia Bulldogs, even in the midst of what might be a win, not a pretty game. And yet, lo and behold, the third quarter was a very different story. George Pickens gets a touchdown for the Dogs. 21 unanswered points would follow. A big performance in a backup role by the Mailman, the quarterback Stetson Bennett, and Georgia sails to a 34-10 win over the Arkansas Razorbacks to move to 1-0 on this very young 2020 campaign. And also, of course, 1-0 in SEC play, because that's all there is here in the 2020 season. Obviously, I'll be sharing my thoughts and opinions with you throughout the night, but I know the guy that you're looking forward to hearing from, as promised, the former Georgia wide receiver Terrence Edwards, who knows so many of these players and has worked with these players and is in a relationship and really an influence on a lot of these players. Terrence, for the guys that you've talked to this week and the guys who are looking forward to making their either college debut or just continuing their college career, I know today was a big day. And to be able to talk about this in the vein now of a win after what was a pretty ugly first half for UGA, I know all of that is going to be treated by you as really good news. Overall, what were your thoughts about what you got a chance to see today?
Tell the two halves. The first half was really sloppy, a lot of penalties. Looked like the first game without any spring practice for a lot of the young guys. And the second half, they came out with a better sense of urgency, and they came out with a better focus. And the second half, we just ran away with it. And like you said, it was going to be a very different show if we continued to play like we did the first half.
You mentioned the tale of two halves, third quarter in particular, and this is not the first time we've seen a Kirby Smart team dominate after halftime. Third quarter in particular has been, really a very successful quarter for Georgia the last couple of years. What do you think that is? Coaching adjustments or just depth taking over? Why do you think it is that more times than not, Georgia has proven itself to be a really good third quarter team, and today against Arkansas, maybe another example of that?
I think depth goes along. I think Kirby has done a great job of bringing talented guys in, and those guys are second and third team, and he rotates a lot of guys, especially on the defensive line. So once the offensive line, they're not fresh as they were in the first quarter, but we're rolling guys that are playing 25 snaps, and the offensive line is playing 50 to 60 snaps. We're just fresher as a team, and they get to dominate after halftime.
Okay, we're going to take a lot of comments here today on the Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA bookstore. That means on Facebook and YouTube, you'll have a chance to have your voice heard. Terrence, though, before we start getting too heavily into our comments, I do want to kind of go through a couple of the key moments of the game. I want to start with the quarterback situation. Dwan Mathis gets the start. Terrence, I was concerned about this. In fact, I believe you and I may have even talked about this when you were with me on Dog Nation Daily on Thursday. There's excitement about Mathis because of the athleticism that he brings to the table. There's some energy around him because of the tremendous backstory, what he's overcome from a health standpoint to be where he is right now. But sometimes, though, that enthusiasm can also work to become maybe sort of impossible to meet expectations. I felt like Dwan entered today's game with maybe some of those expectations. And, at the beginning, we saw a guy who's still learning how to play the quarterback position at the SEC level. What did you make of what we saw from Dwan, both in terms of when he got a chance to start and maybe a more relaxed, more comfortable version of himself when he came back in the second half?
He played exactly how I thought he would play, be honest with you, B.A. A guy who hasn't started in 2 years, a guy who's coming off a traumatic incident with his brain, and he's getting his first live reps in an SEC game against live bullets, and it was just, I think, a little overwhelming to him. So he played exactly how I thought he would play, and just a learning experience, and he'll get opportunity to see his mistakes on film, and he'll learn from them.
How lucky do you think a team like Georgia is to have a quarterback like Stetson Bennett, who really has not been a big part of the offseason conversation, the preseason conversation? In fact, during a lot of the scrimmages, we were told that he was working more with the number 3 team, Carson Beck working with the 2s. Lately, it had been JT Daniels and Dwan Mathis working with the 1s. But, boy, Stetson Bennett looked every bit the part of a QB1 today. How lucky was Georgia to have him to come in and save the bacon today?
I think we're very lucky. I think he brings an experience factor that none of the other quarterbacks have besides JT Daniels. So we needed him. I'm glad we have him. I know he was there before and came back, and he's going to provide that experience that we need at the quarterback position until JT Daniels get cleared to play.
I like this comment from Heather Chastain Bain, who says, is Stetson Bennett the secret quarterback we didn't know about. Terrence, for me, I don't know it's so much secret quarterback, Kirby keeping it a secret. When Bennett came in, to me, it was just kind of the simple game plan that you think ought to work well for Georgia. Getting wide receivers involved. Georgia's got a ton of talent. Put the ball out there. Let those guys do the work. Frankly, I love the way that when Bennett came in, things seemed to kind of calm down. The game plan itself is simple because, as you know, you're obviously a great former Georgia wide receiver yourself. Georgia's got loaded with talent there at the wide receiver position. Just let those guys do the work. And really in the third quarter, I thought that Bennett was able to really stimulate that.
Yes, I think so. You just look at his demeanor. His demeanor in the pocket was cool, calm, and collective. And I think the team played to his strength, and the team played much more relaxed once he got in the game because he was relaxed in the pocket, just going through his reads and making the correct throws. And I thought he made some small errors, but overall he played a great game, very composed game, and he didn't put his team in bad positions.
Harrell Thomas on Facebook also mentioning more about Dwan Mathis. Terrence, there's going to be a lot for us to break down on Mathis' performance in the days to come. But here's the one thing I think I want to say here, and I even wrote this during the game in our forum at forum.dognation.com. I know there's a tendency to want to look at what Dwan did and maybe focus on the fact that he was replaced in the game and maybe there were some throws he'd like to have back or moments he'd like to have back. Yet the things that we'd been told that we would love about Mathis when we got a chance to see him play today, we did see those things. The throw that he made to George Pickens on ultimately was end up, an out of bounds play and, a catch that doesn't count. But the throw itself was incredible. When Mathis used his legs, he showed off that level of his athleticism as well. I'm not trying to sugarcoat the night for him. There's clearly a lot about tonight that Mathis is going to want to have back, and I'm sure he'll have detailed film study about all of that. But the point is, Mathis did, I think, even in the moments tonight where he was struggling a little bit, provide just some glimpses of why it is that people are high on his potential. And I'm guessing we're going to hear a lot more from him in a Georgia uniform in the years to come. Tonight was just the start of his Georgia career.
Correct. We saw the arm talent that he possesses. We saw his athleticism that he possesses. He just doesn't have much experience right now playing quarterback in the SEC. And that's going to take time. Every quarterback is just not going to light it up their first opportunity to play SEC football. And this was a learning experience for him. I'm sure Coach Monk and his staff will get back into the film study and show him the good and the bad, and he will learn from this. So that's what the positive that he can take about it. We got the win, but now he has tape to go and see himself and see the mistakes that he made.
Reggie Walker watching us on Facebook says he takes everything he ever said about Stetson Bennett back. And that's the funny thing about the Terrence on this quarterback competition this year, where at different times, I think, many of us have been saying different things. At one point in time, I was sure that Jamie Newman would be the Georgia starting quarterback. He's not here right now. Then maybe a lot of folks thought it might be JT Daniels. He's apparently still not healthy. Dwan Mathis has gotten a lot of the talk, and yet it was Stetson Bennett coming in tonight. I think one of the things we're all reminded of here is there are a lot of, players in that competition, a lot of guys vying for playing time, and maybe it's a different person on different nights. Tonight happened to be Stetson Bennett's night. He stepped up when needed to, and it's never a bad thing to have a number of capable quarterbacks. And tonight it looks like Bennett threw his name into the ring with other quarterbacks that you got to consider capable of getting the job done for the Dogs, right?
Oh, exactly. And we always tell every player on the team, the backup person, player, whoever it is, you're one play away from being in the game. So you have to get yourself mentally ready. And I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from this game, that Stetson kept himself ready. We didn't hear his name a lot in the quarterback competition, but he stayed focused, stayed in with the game plan, and he executed tonight. So that's probably the biggest thing, that he kept himself mentally ready to play this game, and he showed tonight.
Nick Lurch in our Facebook comment section brings up something we need to mention. Jack Podlinski, the kicker tonight for Georgia, Pod, we'll call him. This was his debut as well, and he won a contested kicking battle as well. Jared Zirkle's the guy we've talked about. At one point in time, I believe Jake Camarda was competing to be the place kicker for UGA, and for now, Pod is the winner in that. The kick he was forced to make near the end of the first half, Terrence, was really a pressure-packed kick. Sam Pittman used 2 of his timeouts to end the half, trying to allow, Pod to have more time to think about that, yet he ends up putting it right in there. He'll make another field goal, later on in the game. And, from that standpoint, it was, or I guess that was, late in the game, he made another field goal. From that standpoint, it was nice to see him step up in a pressure situation tonight, make some big kicks. And really, to me, it was a part of what was a very successful night for the Georgia special teams and the debut of Scott Cochran as special teams coach. That group really got it done this evening. Pott as the place kicker. There were some big return yards for Georgia, blocked punt. This was a great day for Georgia special teams, and the place kicker's debut, certainly not the least of those storylines.
That's why we always say, BA, that there's three teams on the football team. They're your offense, defense, and special teams. You would love for all three to play at their best, but when one team is lacking, another team really had to pick up the slack. And I think the special team really did a great job today is giving up field position. Pod, missed his first kick. Luckily, they called the timeout. He got a mulligan on that, and he nailed the second one. And that just gives you confidence right there because we needed that score to make it 7-5 going into halftime. Then we get the ball back. So that was big for the confidence for that young man.
I'm going to take some YouTube comments coming up. I want to read a comment from Trey Edwards, though. I think this is fair to bring up. Terrence, it was a Georgia win tonight, a comfortable margin by the time the second half was done. But there's a lot that I think you got to see improved upon as you head towards a much tougher opponent, Auburn, next week. One of those things for me was running back James Cook, who does have the fumble tonight, but ultimately James probably did not have as good a debut to his 2020 season tonight as I probably expected him to have. Terrence, I think he's going to be an important part of this Georgia offense this year. This team still needs to run the ball. Admittedly, I was probably hoping for a little more tonight from James Cook. This was not a great game for him and one that he'll obviously have some room to improve with as you head towards next week. It's probably fair to bring up James tonight because I'm sure there's some moments tonight he'd like to have back.
Yes, I think so. I don't think he had his best game. He had the fumble. Then he also had a drop pass there on a check down. So he's known for having great hands. A lot of people always talking about moving into the slot because he's such a smaller back, but he didn't play his best tonight. But I'm still excited about his talent and the talent level that his brings, his explosiveness. But he has to play better next week. We need him against Auburn to electrify the crowd that we may have and just make big plays for his team.
Let me remind you, it's our Dog Nation post-game show. We're presented by the UGA Bookstore. My name's Brandon Adams. Good to have former Georgia wide receiver Terrence Edwards with us right now. And by the way, speaking of former Dogs, next week at the UGA Bookstore, which is the place to be and the place to go for all of your UGA apparel needs, whether you're shopping online at UGAbookstore.com or you're showing up 7 days a week right there at the UGA Bookstore in person. Get stocked up on all the great brands, the Nike, the 47 brand, the Vineyard Vines, the Peter Millar, Tommy Bahama, everything that all the great apparel makers who make great UGA gear, they've got it all for you there at the UGA Bookstore. You can get stocked up on that there. Also next week, though, as I said before, speaking of former Dogs, a couple of great UGA names going to be there signing autographs from 5 to 7 p.m. before the Dogs and the Tigers, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, much earlier in the season than we're used to. But next week, the UGA Bookstore going to be ready to go in style as the legendary former coach Vince Dooley will be there, and Garrison Hurst, who, by the way, I still believe should have won the Heisman Trophy in 1992. Garrison going to be signing autographs. Coach Dooley going to be signing autographs. Please make sure you stop by and see them from 5 to 7 p.m. next Saturday there at the UGA Bookstore. And we are so grateful for the UGA Bookstore making the Dog Nation postgame show possible here this year. Terrence, let me shift to our YouTube comments for a moment. And Bank 6, who's one of our great commenters, brings up a really good point. It was nice to see tight ends get involved today. Darnell Washington in his debut, big number 0, big O, they like to call him. He has a big catch in this game. John Fitzpatrick catches a touchdown. I know you're a wide receiver, but you are not just biased in favor of wide receivers. Anybody who's out there catching passes, you're in favor of all of them. You like working with all of them. In fact, you've worked, of course, with tight ends a bunch as well. How much did you enjoy seeing this Todd Monken offense utilize some tight ends tonight, getting Fitzpatrick into the end zone, finding a big catch there for Darnell Washington? How happy were you to be able to see that?
If I don't show the tight ends love, my college roommate, one of my best friends, Random Michael, will kill me. So I have to show the tight ends some love. But it was great to see tight ends being used tonight. Darnell, like you said, had a great catch. Fitzpatrick had a touchdown. So it's great to be able to utilize those pass catchers that just have to be, I call them big wide receivers. So we have to be able to sustain that, control the middle of the field, because that's what the tight ends basically control. So we can have those guys, the safeties won't be able to cheat on the outside to try to double those talented wide receivers that we have. Now we can have tight ends. We always had tight ends. We just have to use them more in the passing game now.
Rodney Hewitt, also watching on YouTube, mentions Jermaine Burton. Terrence, Jermaine's a guy that you know really well. He has a big catch tonight, heavily involved in the offense. We expected him to be on the field a lot tonight. That turned out to be the case. What did you think of Jermaine's debut? And, how is it? And by the way, Marcus Rosemy-Jackson also gets involved tonight a little bit as well. Justin Robinson, one of the freshman wide receivers, also playing tonight in the fourth quarter. I definitely saw Robinson in there too. What did you make of Burton's debut tonight?
Ali did well. There's two plays that stick out to me. It's the one holding call. He didn't drop his weight down and block the guy on the screen pass. And then there was one play that I could see that he missed the assignment on, because you could see the coaches telling him that he missed the signal and he didn't run the right play. Those are first mistakes that he will improve on in the next game.
Bruce Eklund, by the way, and I have to acknowledge this. So, Terrence, you may not be aware of this. In fact, you're probably not. But one of the things I have talked a lot about is new coaches in the SEC, what our expectations for those new coaches are. And I did not expect much from Mike Leach of Mississippi State. Frankly, I still don't. I don't think Leach is heading for a good career. But, yes, after all that I said about him during the offseason, I do have to acknowledge that Leach and the Bulldogs did get a big win tonight against LSU. So, for Georgia, who had some first-half struggles, it's a lot better to talk about some struggles and a win than it is to have to lament a loss. And for defending champion LSU, defending Big 12 champion Oklahoma, who lost to Kansas State today, there were some big power programs that actually toted losses here today. So I'll take my medicine on some of the things that I've said about Mike Leach, but also it's important to know for some Georgia fans who weren't too happy with their team, things could definitely be a lot worse.
Correct. And I was watching some of that game, and 600-plus yards on the debut versus the LSU Tigers. That's very impressive. So I'm going to give him his props for that, and we're going to see that a lot from him. Now, he's going to rack up a lot of yards. Will that rack up to wins? I don't know. I don't think so as well. I think in this league, you're going to have to run the ball a little bit more. But it was fun to watch today. So at this point today, BA will give Mike Leach his props on this day.
Let me also bring this up, Terrence. It's one of the things I noticed during the first half of this game. One of the things that led to Mathis being removed from the game was a botched center exchange between Trey Hill and Mathis. When Mathis was replaced by Stetson Bennett, briefly Trey Hill was also replaced by Warren Erickson at center. Hill moved over to guard. I think that Trey Hill is one of the most important offensive linemen on this team. Admittedly, it's a little concerning, though, when one of the guys that you think of in an offensive line that does not have a lot of bedrock returning starters, Hill is supposed to be one. The fact that he had to be moved from center briefly, whatever, led that. I'm sure Kirby Smart will talk more about that, the post-game press conference. That's a little concerning for me. I didn't think this was a great day necessarily for the Georgia offensive line. There's a lot for that group to work on. And some of what was going on with Hill there in the first half was certainly a little eye-opening. And I know a lot of Georgia fans were reacting to that near the half. What did you make of all of that?
I kind of look at it different. He did have the bot snap. But why did we move him to guard? Was there any kind of injury that we don't know about that they put him at guard for whatever reason? If they took him out for disciplinary reason or not playing well reason, why would they stick him at guard instead of bringing the backup in? So that part I'm not really sure about. I've never really seen anyone get removed from their original position and put at another position because they're not playing well. That's usually comes from injury.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. We'll certainly hear what Kirby Smart has to say about that in the postgame. And, of course, on the Dog Nation video channels, you can check out all of that stuff postgame and stay up to date on what Kirby has to say there and everything else. Dog Nation postgame show here on the Dog Nation video channels, and also a lot more of that for you on both Facebook and YouTube. You can see the Kirby Smart press conference coming up a little later on. We're going to keep rolling on here, take a lot more of your comments. It's good to have you here on the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA bookstore. Before we're done here, coming up, we'll have our moment of the game presented by our friends at Marco's Pizza. So stay tuned for that coming up a little bit before we're done. Let's check in and find out a few more comments and see what people are saying on both Facebook and YouTube. Mike Gay also talking about the situation with the offensive line. Yeah, that's one of those things that you're going to pay attention to. And, Terrence, I think for a lot of people watching on the offensive line here this year, it is fair to point out this is a smaller, thinner offensive line, slimmer, maybe is the better word to use, than it was a year ago. We presume that's the way that Todd Monken wants to play. That's the style of offensive lineman that Matt Luke has made in vogue here in this program. And that may mean that physicality may be a little tougher to come by. Obviously, people will be watching that a little closer. It seems like this group maybe asserted itself more in the second half of the game than it did in the first half. But clearly, with the transition from Sam Pittman, the style of offensive lineman that he preferred, to what Georgia's now doing with Matt Luke. When there's some growing pains there tonight, it seemed like there, may be a little bit of a growing pain issue. When you've got some of that kind of stuff going on, people are obviously going to notice that, are they not?
Oh, most definitely. And this is, people always say, what's the tightest group on the football field? And it's always offensive line. This offensive line don't have many games starting together. So they have to get their cohesiveness together and understand what they like. The communication has to be better from that group. And I think it will. We saw them run the ball better in the second half. Jamar Sawyer is starting his first game at left tackle. We have a lot of offensive linemen. Owen Condon starting right tackle. So game experience is what they need as well. And I love what I saw from them in the second half. And that's what I think we will see continue going on next week against Auburn.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. James Crump also in our Facebook comment section bringing up the name JT Daniels. Daniels did travel, was with the Dogs here today, but the game time decision of would he play, would he not, ended up being a no. Obviously, Georgia didn't need him today because of the performance they got when Stetson Bennett did step in. Mm-hmm. But to answer James' question here for a second, Terrence, ultimately, what did you think of the way that the Daniels was kind of handled leading up to this week and the fact that we approached game time with him still a mystery? And, I'm sure Smart will update his status in his post-game press conference. But really, as we head towards the Auburn game, Daniels continues to still be a little bit of a mystery. What do you make of all of that right now?
Honestly, I think this is a coaching plot that Kirby is setting out there. I think he's going to allow that to linger. Is he or isn't he going to play? So now coaches have to prepare for him now. Oh, who is it going to be the quarterback? Is it going to be Dwan? Is it going to be Stetson? Is JT's going to be cleared? So I think it's just a coaching ploy for the opposing teams to try to, now you have to game plan for all three quarterbacks now.
We'll see what else is going on. Jay Bias says I'm being biased to the YouTube comment section or the Facebook not showing enough YouTube love. I apologize. I'll do a lot more. I deal with this, Terrence. If I'm not doing enough YouTube comments or enough Facebook comments, I always hear from both comment sections. So let me make sure I'm getting both comment sections a little bit more involved here. Xavier Mitchell brings up a pretty good point, and we probably should have talked about this a little bit before now on the idea of the penalties. Terrence, what was up with all the penalties in the first half? This was very much unlike Georgia, cleared up more in the second half, but man, so many first half penalties. What did you make of that?
You could tell this is not going to say first game jitters, but this is just first game where the speed is just different at this point in time. Yes, you're in practice, but now this is the real game. These are players that you don't know, that you haven't been against. So some of the technique wasn't as sharp as it needs to be. But luckily, in the second half, we only had one penalty for how many yards. We had 11 in the first half. And you're not going to be able to move the ball at all if you're always behind the sticks. So second half, we only got one penalty. We moved the ball without any kind of distraction to move us back. And that's why we scored more points in the second half, because we didn't have any penalties.
Terrence, let me bring in some words from Kirby Smart here on the show, who, on the idea of the quarterback switch, says during the post-game press conference that he knows that people are going to make a big deal about that, but he says that not every one of those decisions was necessarily a bad decision by Mathis. Coming to his defense there. Now, Kirby's going to keep his cards close to the vest on all that kind of stuff. He doesn't praise too much. He doesn't criticize too much. But in this particular case, I think there's a chance that's probably true. I think we have a tendency to, and this is the oldest cliche in football, make too much out of this stuff in the early going when a guy does well, maybe make too much out of it when things aren't going well. I'm not too surprised to hear Kirby Smart take that tact a moment ago. What do you make of those words? Kind of downplaying the circumstances that surrounded the quarterback switch from Mathis to Stetson Bennett.
I think Kirby has to show confidence in DeJuan Mathis, because he's a guy that started his first game today. You don't want to lose his confidence. I thought it was a great idea to put him back in the game once we had the game in hand, just not to break the young man confidence. And I think Kirby is right. A lot of times we as fans only can see what we can see with the naked eye and not understand what's going on around him. And a lot of times it's not his fault. It could be a receiver running the wrong route, offensive lineman not blocking the opponent he's supposed to block. So we don't know exactly what the play broke down, but it always comes back to the quarterback. So I think Kirby is exactly right on that.
Elite GB in our YouTube comment section, also mentioning a lot of those issues, whether it be decision-making offensively, penalties, maybe some of the breakdowns in the early stages of the offensive line. He's concerned that it can't be fixed in 6 days. So, Terrence, let me ask you this. How much better can this team get from week 1 to week 2? There's no doubt that the opponent is exponentially better next Saturday than the one that Georgia faced today, with all due respect to the Razorbacks. How much better can Georgia get? Because it's going to take a much better performance to beat Auburn.
I think so, but you just saw the 2 different halves here. So we saw the first half and saw the second half. So if we come out and play like we did in the second half, it was very clean, no penalties, and we're going to give ourselves an opportunity to win. If we're going to go out and commit penalties and continue to put ourselves in bad situations, I don't care how well the quarterback plays, we're not going to win. So the overall team-wise, we have to play like we did in the second half to give ourselves a chance to win the game this week.
Bill Kibbe on YouTube also bringing up the Georgia defense. There was the scoring drive for Arkansas earlier, but Terrence, I thought over the entirety of today, this defense was truly as advertised for the Dogs. Really getting out there, playing in a big way, speed flying all over the place. There are freshmen. Jalen Carter gets some big plays. What did you make of the performance of this Georgia defense here today?
I thought the defense played excellent on that scoring drive. Just from my naked eye, I believe Richard was looking in the backfield and got caught on his guy running the corner route. He got behind. So I think that is a system bust that we definitely got corrected on the sideline. And after that, they didn't move the ball anymore. I don't know how many 3 and outs we had, but I think our defense overall today played well on holding any SEC opponent to 10 points. We should be able to win every game if we do that.
You mentioned Richard LeCount. When you think about the plays that he goes out there and makes, a couple turnovers, what's up with this? And maybe somebody watching can tell me more about this. But I didn't see the spike shoulder pads come out. Terrence, I thought it was always spike shoulder pad when you got the turnover. He gets the turnover tonight. I saw him do with a little bit of the celebration, the arms fold celebration on the field. I didn't see spike shoulder pads. Are you telling me we can't do spike shoulder pads this year? No props because of coronavirus? I was a little disappointed not to see the spikes come out, or if they did come out, I just simply didn't see them.
No, they did. They did. They had the Savage shoulder pads on, so he did bring out the shoulder pads.
Oh, he did? Okay, that's good to know.
Yes, he did.
Well, that's good to know. That's a nice thing to be able to provide, because at first, he kind of gives you the arms folded thing like that, and I thought, well, they're not going to do them, and I tried to watch to see if it come out, but I guess I never just saw them. I didn't know if you had to keep those things disinfected, and with the coronavirus, you couldn't come out there and do that on a night like this. I wasn't quite sure what that was all about.
No, he definitely had the shoulder pads and with the arms folded, so he definitely did have the Savage shoulder pads on tonight. So right here, we have the Auburn Tigers coming up this weekend. And in my personal opinion, I don't think they played as well today.
There you go. I had a little bit of a breakup there. I don't know if that's on my end or on Terrence's end. Looks like that might be a little bit of an issue. Let's see if we can get this figured out here and see what's going on our dog. Okay, so I'm still good. So it sounds like we got a little bit of a break up there on Terrence. So I'll see if I can get him back, but it sounds like I'm good. Light Dog 1968 says, did we lose BA? Hopefully not. Hopefully we're all squared away on this. Light Dog says I'm back. Okay, that's good. Good to know. Terrence, have you got me as well? Can you hear me here on the Dog Nation post-game show? All right, good to know. Let's pop over and take some more Facebook comments, and we'll keep it rolling here tonight as Georgia's gone out and gotten a big win over the Arkansas Razorbacks to start the 2020 season in style, 1-0 after a shaky first half. Dogs much better there in the second half on that. All right, more of your comments coming here as darkness starts to fall over Fayetteville, Arkansas here. Trey Edwards also continued to talk about the offensive line situation there a little bit. Kathy Aquavia Green on the subject of Leach and Kiffin now in the SEC West. Yeah, two very interesting coaches in the Magnolia State, to be sure. More of your Facebook comments continue to roll in. Jill Cott Burke says Mathis has looked good at practice. I think the shock of a real SEC game was rocking his inexperience. And Terrence, I think the thing to mention here is we knew it was going to get more difficult for Mathis when you go into that game environment. It's not a surprise there were some struggles. I mean, on Dog Nation Daily, as excited as we were for the start of the season, one thing we did say was you had to expect there was going to be a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a drop-off from the fact that Mathis just had not played before, that tempering expectations was appropriate. So I think people needed to be careful not to make too much of what his debut was going to be before it happened. And now that it has happened and maybe didn't quite go as well as some people would like for it to, I'm sure that Dwan himself would have liked for it to. I think it's one of those things not to make too much of that on the other side either.
Exactly. I mean, this is what I alluded to on Wednesday, BA, when I called in, that I predicted this, that we would not necessarily struggle, but it would be a low-scoring game going into the first half. But I think our depth and talent would take over in the second half, and that's exactly what happened. We have to continue to eliminate the penalties next week. We're not going to be able to self-inflict anything penalty-wise or get behind the sticks against Auburn, because we all know what type of rivalry this is. So we're going to have to play a little bit better we did from the second half.
Matt Rukavina says, BA, under no circumstances was that performance acceptable. Couldn't block, couldn't run. Mentioning it needed to be bailed out and saved by Stetson Bennett. Terrence, to a degree, I guess I kind of agree with Matt, the commenter, on that. There's obviously a lot about the night not to like, but I think where I come from as a fan on this, I'm not going to sugarcoat what did not go well, because plenty did not go well, but it sure is nice to be talking about what needs to be fixed on the heels of a win, as opposed to, as I said before, national championship contending teams like LSU and Oklahoma lost tonight. I mean, I think it's important to cite the fact that, that Georgia is not in the position to have to speak that way. And if you're a UGA fan, I think you're pretty happy about all of that.
Yeah, B, I think there's a lot of things that we have to improve on, but just to go overboard after the first game right now and trash the whole season, I think is a little bit excessive. So let's assess this game is what it is. It's the first game of the year. A lot of new players trying to figure out the SEC, a new quarterback. So there's a lot of things that we could take from this. Is the defense played well, special teams played well, and I know Kirby and his staff will get the offense fixed for next week, and we'll come out with a better performance.
Bob Fakay in our Facebook comment section also mentioning the issues the offensive line had in the first half. And, Terrence, for me, this kind of comes down to one of the things that's going to be different about this Georgia team here this year, as opposed to the mauling, gigantic 330-pound offensive tackles Georgia had a year ago. This may be a team this season that uses the pass to set up the run more so than the run to set up the pass. So if you don't have a competent passing game, in the first half today, Georgia was struggling there in that regard a little bit. If you don't have that, it may be one of those deals with the offensive line, find some tough sledding. Frankly, that was true at times last year a little bit too. So, from that standpoint, certainly, this offensive line, needed to do more than it was able to do. But I think it's no coincidence that also coincided with a passing game that was still trying to find its way in the new Todd Monken offense there as well.
Exactly. Both the run game help out the pass game help out the run. If one of the areas is struggling, then they're just going to load the box or drop people in coverage. So both of those segments of the offense has to be 100% with each other. And today in the first half, the passing game nor the running game was looking good. In the second half, we had an opportunity to be a more 50-50 where Zeus got running and the passing game opened up. But we're going to definitely need the running game and the passing game to be on point next week if we got a chance to beat Auburn.
Jeremy Lloyd, watching us on our Facebook comment section, says right now Georgia's play is not national championship level, no matter which quarterback was in the game, whether it be Stetson Bennett, whether it be Dwan Mathis. I certainly think that's true. But the good news, though, Terrence, is if you're Georgia, you've got a long time to go to get ready for all of that. Georgia's still got lots of football, left this season as far as working towards being championship ready.
I think so. I mean, this is the first game of the year, and I think we, as Georgia fans, come into the season expecting to be hitting on all cylinders the first game of the year. We really got to understand, the circumstance that went into this season. A lot of Zoom meetings, not many physical meetings. So as an offense, some offense expected to struggle a little bit. And we did today. We're breaking in a new offensive coordinator So we haven't had much time to gel as an offense today. And I think as the season progressed, we would get much better. We'll understand what type of team we are.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to move and get myself in a little bit better light here. So for Michael Carvel, who's producing us back in Atlanta, let me see if I can get my face into a little bit more light here. So I'm going to walk here just a little bit. And Terrence, as we do, I'm going to remind folks they're watching the Dog Nation postgame show. We're presented by the UGA bookstore, and we are in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where the lights are not shining as bright tonight. Maybe it's because the Razorbacks lost this evening or whatever the reason was. It's getting dark fast here in Fayetteville, so I'm going to move over here, get myself in a little bit better light as a part of the Dog Nation postgame show here tonight. And I certainly appreciate my on-site producer helping me here in Fayetteville get all this squared away. But Terrence, as we keep the conversation going here for a minute, let's talk a little bit more about some of the things that we maybe liked and didn't like. I mentioned a moment ago, for Scott Cochran, who made his debut tonight as Georgia special teams coach, what a performance for him here this evening, really going out there and getting a chance to do some big things. What did you think of the work this Georgia special teams did? I thought Kenny McIntosh as a punt returner, or as I should say, as a kick returner, I thought McIntosh did a great job.
I think so. I thought he did too. I thought he hit the hole. And I love having running backs back there because kick return is a one cut and go. It's not a lot of dancing. You find a hole, you see a hole, you burst through the hole. And he saw a hole and he exploded through the hole. And you got to give his blockers some credit as well. They opened up a seam and he hit the seam and put us in great field position. Yeah,
they absolutely did. And I agree with you. I love the idea of running backs being there really for a couple of reasons. First of all, because those guys can be dynamic, weapons in the kick returning game. But the other thing here is, you have an opportunity to get playmakers involved. And if you're Georgia, you've recruited so well, but sometimes the challenge when you've recruited as well as Georgia has, you want to keep everybody as happy as you can keep them. And getting a chance to, get guys like that involved in a special team situation, just a way to kind of, find some playing time for guys, get them involved in the offense when they otherwise, maybe they wouldn't have as much of a chance to be as involved as they would like to be. When you get a chance to get them involved special teams, it's just a way to get them on the field there as well.
Exactly. And I think the punt return today did an excellent job for Kears Jackson. I don't know how many yards he averaged on punt return, but I'm sure it's over 10 yards. So you could count that as a first down, putting us in great field position. So that team, special teams, you give Coach his props tonight because he had his team ready to play.
Yeah, he certainly did. We're going to take a lot more of your comments here in the Dog Nation postgame show. We appreciate you being here in Fayetteville, where Georgia's gotten a win over the Arkansas Razorbacks, spoiling the debut for Sam Pittman as Arkansas coach. But the one thing, though, and Terrence, I can report that the Arkansas fans who are in attendance, very hospitable. They're certainly excited about Pittman as their new coach, but also warmly greeting the Georgia fans who were in attendance here tonight. And the one thing that I've told them is I think that Pittman has a chance to eventually really build something at Arkansas. I think that, certainly he had his team ready to play here today. Would not surprise me to see more big things to come in the future from Sam Pittman there, the Arkansas coach.
I think so. I think he did a great job to get his team ready to play. I love the guy. I love Coach Pittman. He's going to be able to recruit. Once he get the talent in there that he likes, he's going to do a great job. Right now, you can see in the third quarter that depth just took over, and that's one of the things that Kirby learned from Nick Saban is depth, and I think that's one of the things Sam Pittman is going to take from Kirby is you got to have depth in this league to contend week in and week out.
So one of the things that Bryce Dixon brings up in our Facebook comment section is the idea that when Stetson came in the game, he really woke up the team. And Terrence, you played in games where, maybe the energy level from the very beginning of the game, for whatever reason, wasn't what it was supposed to be. And then you get that spark. Today, Stetson Bennett really provided that spark for Georgia. And Bryce's description of that, I think right there is really a pretty good one.
I think so, too. I think team took control of his demeanor. And what I mean by that, he was very calm in the pocket, very relaxed. So I think the team relaxed a little bit and just went out there, started playing football once Stetson got out there, started moving the team. So I think Stetson did a great job of leading this team to a victory today.
The other guy that I thought really did a great job there in that regard was George Pickens. We're going to talk more about Pickens a little bit later on. But, the one thing that Terrence, I've said about George Pickens is I know there's an energy level that Pickens provides for Georgia that I don't know that anybody else in this roster is quite capable of providing. And sometimes people will say, well, maybe Pickens plays a little bit too much of an edge, and maybe there's a couple of aspects of his game they like to see him dial down a little bit. The truth is, whatever George Pickens has, I wish every player on the Georgia roster had that. I love the energy that Pickens plays with, and tonight I also thought that was plenty contagious for Georgia also.
I think so. He does play with a chip on his shoulder. He plays on the edge, but that's okay as long as you don't cross that edge like we did against Georgia Tech. He has to understand when to have that edge and when to pull back. But you got to have guys like that because once he make a play, it's very contagious. That play and that energy is contagious. If you got all guys that are flat, your team is going to be flat. He's not a guy that plays flat, and you need guys like that on your team because he's going to bring energy to your locker room.
That's absolutely true. Let's take some more of your comments here. Dog Nation post-game show. We're live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where Georgia's gotten a win over the Arkansas Razorbacks, using a big second half to get that done. We'll continue to take your comments. Gina Markham says over here, ringing that bell in Athens. Yeah, no doubt that chapel victory bell will be ringing tonight. Terrence, there's a lot of traditions here this year that are just going to be a little different than we're used to them being. But this is one this season that I'm sure that bell is going to be ringing. There was no UGA in the stadium tonight, no red coat band. But there in Athens, that chapel bell, my guess is it probably is ringing pretty good here this evening.
Oh, it has to. That's a tradition that we can't allow to get away from us. For a while, we didn't ring it, but that's a tradition that will go on forever in Georgia history.
All right, let's take some more comments over here on YouTube. Josh L. also bringing up the work that the Georgia special teams was able to do tonight. Certainly a great job by them. Barry Boswick also bringing up George Pickens, saying the real deal. He just gets better as the season goes. And, this is one of those things where, if you're a superstar type player, and, Terrence, you probably like me grew up watching the NBA, there's certain guys in the world of basketball that just want the ball in their hand with the game on the line. Frankly, if Pickens doesn't catch the touchdown when he catches it, who knows what happens the rest of this way. But if you want to be a superstar type player, and obviously I think that Pickens has the talent to be able to do that, it's showing up big in a big moment that's able to get that done. And, I think that speaks to what the potential for Pickens is here this year. The fact that tonight, in a night when really Georgia didn't have a whole lot going on, for Pickens to be able to step up the way that he did, Georgia needed that spark in a big, big way.
Yes, if you're a big-time player, you want to be in those moments. You want to be the guy that sparks the team. You don't want to be waiting. And I always tell them when I play, like, don't wait to make the play or don't look for someone else to make the play. You make the play. He has the confidence if nobody else don't want to do it, I'll do it. Put it on my shoulders. He have broad shoulders, and that's the way he plays. So he is a tremendous talent to go along with being a tremendous teammate because that energy he brings, it lifted the team tonight on that touchdown. And I think that was the start of the way we played in the second half.
In fact, let's go ahead and make that our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. George Pickens touchdown there in the third quarter that leads to 21 answered points in the Georgia Bulldogs. The 19-yard throw from Stetson Bennett, the touchdown that ultimately also led to a Stetson Bennett 2-point conversion. That's the moment that gave Georgia the lead and ultimately completely changed the momentum in this game. That is our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. By the way, big thanks to Marco's Pizza for being a part of our post-game coverage here this year. And if you're watching football this weekend, Marco's Pizza is a great pairing for that. I can tell you that my family, we love Marco's Pizza for a couple of reasons. First of all, it tastes great. It's America's most beloved pizza. It's real, authentic pizza made the Italian way. It's also an incredible value as well. That's another reason my family loves Marco's Pizza so much, or at least my wife and I do, because we have two young kids who very, very hungry mouths. They're always eating a bunch of food, but Marco's Pizza is a great value for us on that. In fact, let me give you an idea of the great savings you can get from Marco's Pizza right now. You can get a large one-topping pizza, 10 chicken wings for dippers. It's just $17.99. Go to the Marco's app or Marcos.com. You can place your order there that way and take advantage of that great savings from our friends at Marco's Pizza. It's contactless delivery, 450-degree oven. So as we're thinking about staying healthy and safe with social distancing, Marco's Pizza got you covered on that. And George Pickens had the Dogs covered as well. His touchdown tonight, our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. We got some time left here for more of your comments here on the Dog Nation postgame show, presented by the UGA bookstore before we wrap up here. Cool Breeze JP says that Bennett's going to be the starter for Auburn. So here's the thing I'd say on this, Terrence, and I think that Kirby Smart's words on this probably echo this as well. I think it's too soon to start speculating too much on that. We don't know yet the health status of JT Daniels. Smart not really divulging that, this evening. I would say the competition between all these guys is ongoing. Maybe we should have been considering Bennett more a part of this competition than we were, taking Smart at face value when he said they already knew what he was able to do. But in terms of proclaiming who's going to be the starting quarterback for Auburn, I don't know that I'm quite ready to do that yet with Mathis, who started tonight, with Bennett, who ultimately kind of came in and got the save and the win. I'm not quite ready to do any of that just yet. And I think it's probably appropriate for fans to allow this competition just to play out.
I think so. We don't know JT Daniels' status for next week. He may be cleared by next Saturday. We don't know that. So I'm sure Kirby's going to keep this close to his vest again and probably won't name a starter. We'll just have to wait and see who runs out on the field first. But I would like to see both play, actually, B. I would like to see Stetson get in if JT is not cleared yet. Whoever the starter may be really doesn't matter to me. So then, but we have to be able to use some of Dwan Mathis' tools that he brings to the game. It's his running ability that just bring an extra dimension to the game that we need to beat Auburn with.
I'll remind you, it's our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Don't forget, next Saturday at the UGA Bookstore for the home opener against Auburn, big autograph signing. The legendary former coach Vince Dooley is going to be on hand. Former Georgia great at running back Garrison Hurst from 5 to 7 p.m. next Saturday before the Deep South's oldest rivalry between Georgia and Auburn. Make sure you check out the Dog Nation folks will be there for the post-game show. It's actually our 5th straight year of being live there at the UGA Bookstore for the Dog Nation post-game show. We'll be there next Saturday, but also make sure you check out the big autograph signing as well before the game from 5 to 7 p.m. Check out Coach Dooley, check out Garrison Hurst at the UGA Bookstore next Saturday. And then, as I said, we'll see you there after the game as well for the 5th consecutive season. Dog Nation back at the UGA Bookstore, a home away from home up there on the 2nd floor. So if you're going to be there, please come on by and say hello. We won't do a handshake. We won't do a high five. We'll do a little fist bump. We'll do a little something like that to keep you healthy and safe. But I'll be glad to see you at the UGA Bookstore there next Saturday. Michael Hardigan agrees something, by the way, with what you just said, Terrence, that Dwan Mathis still needs to be a part of the offense. And I think that's true, that for now, this is going to be a struggling offense. This is not going to be, America's most high-powered offense. Therefore, you need to get yards how you can get them and convert points how you can get them. And the athleticism that Mathis brings to the table, Terrence, I think there's still going to be a role for that, even in the midst right now of, you question whether or not he's Georgia's true starter at quarterback. But as you said before, finding a role for him in this offense, I absolutely believe that's still got to be a part of the equation for Georgia, I would say.
I would think so. I think so. I don't. He's too talented to keep on the bench, and we don't want to overreact to one game. He didn't have his best game tonight. In my book, this is what I expected, for him to struggle a little bit. But it's a learning experience for the guy. It's his first game, his first college football game. So let's just temper the expectations and not just throw the guy away off of one game. It's hard playing quarterback in the SEC. So he's going to learn from it, get back to the drawing board, and he's going to go and work and prepare for next week.
A couple other comments coming in here over on the YouTube side of things, and really on Facebook as well. Chris Branham also mentioning this with Matt Landers. What did you think of the veteran presence that Landers provided tonight? That's a guy who's been kind of waiting for his turn to really thrive in this Georgia offense. What did you think of the play that you saw from Matt Landers here this evening?
I always tell my receivers, just make the most of the opportunities that you get. He had 2 opportunities tonight to catch the football, and he caught both of them. I can't remember if there was for first down, but there was for a positive gain. So that's always a plus. I saw him in there mixing up, blocking. So I think he played well tonight. When he's not out and they're not dropping passes, then that's a plus. I think him and Jermaine actually rotated out at Z. So you got to have a veteran guy in there because Jermaine is still learning the game. He's still learning SEC play. He's still learning how to play college football. So, and they rotated a lot of receivers tonight, and that's a testament of the recruitment that this Georgia staff has made.
Chin, watching us on YouTube, asked about the big shot that Mathis took in the first quarter. Terrence, I know you played a lot of positions in high school, so you have a little bit of experience with this. How do you avoid that big shot right there? Because for Dwan Mathis or anyone, you can't take that many big blows like that and hope to stay in the game. How do you avoid that if you're Dwan Mathis?
he just got to understand dynamic distance. He got to understand time, because that there was an opportunity for him just to get out of bounds. Let's play the next play. Then there was another one run late on the next drive where he stepped out right before the first down. That's when you got to try to put your shoulder pads down and try to get that first down. So he got to understand the situations of the game. It's a time and place for everything, and he's going to learn that once he get more experience playing college football.
Jacob Phillips, I want to address your comment here for a moment. He says no championship team is going to use multiple quarterbacks for situation offense. It needs to be one quarterback until each game is out of reach. So, Jacob, to a degree, I'm going to agree with you that if you move towards, the season's most important games for Georgia when you get to December, hopefully Georgia's still competing for a championship. I would agree with you that at that point in time, Georgia probably needs to have decided who its quarterback's going to be. But this is one of those things, and I tried to say this on Dog Nation Daily, and this is not a see I told you so moment for me, Terrence, but I talked about tempering expectations of the Georgia offense, being careful what you thought could happen, too soon in the season. This is a team breaking in 3 new starters at offensive line. There's a ton of new, receivers, a whole bunch of new quarterback. That's not me trying to make excuses. I'm just telling you, this is for the most part, in terms of some struggles offensively, what we expected to happen. We talked about it. So for right now, Terrence, I don't think Georgia's good enough to say they can only play one quarterback. They have to see some game reps and see how that goes. By the end of the season, I agree with Jacob, the commenter, that they need to have settled on their guy and go to bat with that guy for a chance to try to win a championship. But for right now, there's nothing wrong with putting multiple guys in there to see which guy emerges in the actual live in-game reps. I think Georgia's got no other choice but to do that for the moment.
I agree. And my last year, DJ and David split reps during the season. So DJ knew when he was going to come in. So we played 2 quarterbacks, and we had opportunity to play for we should have had opportunity to play for a national championship that year if we had to play off, but we're not going to talk about that tonight.
Sure.
But, the 2 quarterback system is not always bad. Yes, we knew David was our starter, but we knew DJ was going to come in on every third or fourth series. So having 2 quarterbacks is not always bad. You do want to have a clear-cut starter at some point, but right now we don't have a clear-cut starter. So you're going to have to platoon right now until you figure out who's going to take this team and lead us to where we want to be.
And by the way, I'm going to go back to as recently as 2015, kind of pre-Jalen Hurts at Alabama. Nick Saban, in a year they won the national championship, extended his quarterback competition well into the season. In a year in which the season started normally as it does at the beginning of September. By the end of the season's first month, they hadn't totally settled in on Jacob Coker yet, the quarterback that would ultimately help lead them to a national championship. So the idea that in the playoff era, you haven't seen quarterbacks share time for eventual national champions, in the early going you have. I'll cite Trevor Lawrence as well in 2018. At the beginning of that season, it was still Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence emerged during the year. Now, Terrence, I don't think that this year Georgia necessarily has a Trevor Lawrence type player waiting in the wings, but in terms of a guy emerging over the course of the year, I think that's absolutely something in the playoff era we've seen teams do. 2 examples from national champions right there.
Exactly, and this is a crazy year right now with no spring practice. Most of the meetings went on Zoom, so really no face-to-face, no live reps. So I expected this. I expect this from a new offense coordinator breaking in his new offense with a lot of new players. So we're not a old offense like just say Alabama where Sarkisian's already been there. The players know exactly what he's going to run. Veteran players. We have a lot of new players that we're breaking in. So we have to. It's the first game. And if this continues throughout the season, yes, then we can have that conversation. But right now, we got to take it game by game because next week we could go out and play lights out. Then the third week we could go out and not play what if we did it to Auburn. So it's a week by week until we get late in the season.
Luis Moctezuma also mentioned this defensive performance again. Terrence, let's talk more about this group. As I said before, Felipe Franks found some success early. I thought it was a pretty good game plan in the first quarter by the Razorbacks offensive coordinator, Kendall Briles. But by the time, this game really got into its pivotal moments, Georgia defense, as advertised, rotating a ton of people, big-time plays, forcing some turnovers. There was a lot to like about the performance from the Georgia defense here today.
I think so. They played lights out. They stopped the run, and they played very good pass coverage defense. Well, I think we just gave up one or two big plays today, which that's good. Holding another SEC town to two explosive plays. So I expect us to go back and watch film and make some corrections that the plays that we gave up, and expect to. That's a rivalry game next week against Auburn, so they're going to be jacked up. It's going to be at home, so we're going to go out and we're going to give our best, especially against the Auburn Tigers.
Kill a Mime on YouTube talking about those penalties again. Terrence, as a former player, how tough of a week of practice is it when penalties were such a big storyline in the game? How rough's that week of practice going to be for UGA this week? Both, I guess, in terms of maybe a little bit of punishment for the decisions that were made, but also in tightening it up and cleaning up for next Saturday. How tough are practices in a week like this after what Georgia just had to deal with on the field here this evening?
So I can remember when we had penalty punishment is where we all had to gather up and do up downs, and the person who committed that penalty had to come into the middle and he had to lead the up down. So penalty is not good. It's going to have penalties, but 11 and 1/2 is just way too much. And I'm sure Kirby's going to address that, and hopefully next game guys don't have as many. I could definitely take one for 5 yards in the second half. That's a cleaner game, and hopefully that's the game that we present next week.
All right, let me remind folks who we are, what we're doing. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I love having a great former Georgia player on the show, because it's great insight from someone who actually went through these practices and knows what it's like to win an SEC championship at Georgia. We'll have Terrence Edwards with us for our Dog Nation post-game show all season long here on the Dog Nation video channels. And big thanks to the UGA bookstore for making it all possible. We've been there for 5 straight years, and we'll be back there this upcoming year as well, including next Saturday for the post-game show. I'll see you there after the game is over with. You can come get your apparel, all the great brands that you love, all there at the UGA bookstore. You can shop 7 days a week at the UGA bookstore, or you can shop 24 hours a day, 365 days a year online at UGAbookstore.com. Big autograph signing as well from 5 to 7 p.m. next Saturday. Vince Dooley, Garrison Hurst, two of the great names in this program's history, signing autographs from 5 to 7 p.m. All right, for everybody who's with us, let's take 5 quick minutes. Let's get to as many comments as we can, 5 minutes. We're going to get off the air after that. Dennis Wilson, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate that. Let's find out what else is going on. Bank 6, by the way, also mentioning Nakobe Dean. Terrence, how much do you love seeing the work number 17 does there at the linebacker spot for Georgia? Did you like what you saw from Nakobe Dean tonight?
I love what I saw. That guy can run. He can definitely run. He's sideline. He's Roquan 2.0. He plays exactly like Roquan. Probably not the biggest or the tallest, but definitely a awesome player. And I love watching him tonight.
Daniel Lewis on the subject of JT Daniels. I mean, listen, my thing on Daniels has not really, the tune on that has not really changed either. Whether it be Daniels, who has started before, Mathis, who got his first start tonight, Bennett, who's really played his first extensive football, here this evening. I think you've got to temper expectations for all these people. Terrence, I'll invite people to go back and listen to every recording I've said about, JT Daniels. I think he has a chance to be an outstanding player, but I'm also not going to put too many expectations on him when we finally get a chance to see him play there as well. I think there's been too much hype for Georgia quarterbacks. I've said as much. I've tried to kind of keep that stuff calmed down. I think on any given day they can all be capable, but it's important not to treat any of them as if they're, getting ready to be the next, Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or whatever your quarterback flavor is. It's important to treat any of these guys like they're destined to automatically be that, because that's just putting too much on their shoulders, I believe.
I agree with you. And the only thing that JT Daniels brings to the table that other ones don't is experience. He understands college football because he's actually played a season. There's a lot of mistakes that Stetson made and DeJuan made that I don't think JT Daniels would have made. That one non-call penalty that DeJuan had for attempt to the ground, I don't think JT would have made that. And that was attempt to the ground, and luckily we didn't get that call. So those are the small mistakes.
Hold on. You got to stop there for a second. We got to talk about that. That is one of those things. I'd like. There was a potential grounding moment on Arkansas tonight where I thought, this is a chance for. I thought Georgia probably got hosed on that call a little bit.
Yeah, we did. I think both quarterbacks had intent to the ground that should have been called. But those are the things that DeJuan will learn in the process of getting live game rep. We cannot understand the the importance of live game and practice reps. That's totally two different reps. And this was a valuable game for DeJuan tonight. He understands, and now he understands what he has to do better. After film study this week, he'll go back and prepare himself, and I expect for him to play better next week.
Peter Jeffrey Wilson says everyone's unhappy right now, but Georgia won. Terrence, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest to Peter, who just commented. I was so worried earlier because this is your first time doing the post-game show. I wanted you to have a good experience. Terrence, sometimes, listen, sometimes when things don't go well, it's not always so much fun. Sometimes you get a lot of unhappy people. When that score finally started climbing up a little bit tonight, and I was like, okay, Georgia's going to have kind of a comfortable margin of victory here, I was so glad because for a while there, I was afraid we were going to have a bunch of unhappy people. There's obviously some reasonable criticisms, and we're hearing some of those comments on both Facebook and YouTube tonight. But it's a lot happier conversation than it would have been. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Exactly, B. I can tell you, when it was 5-2, my two boys come here just talking to me, blah, blah, blah. And the look on my face that I gave them, they just like, okay, let me just leave him alone right now. So it's trying to pay attention to the game. They talking, we're not playing well. And, that negativity goes on people that you love. That's what Georgia football makes you do.
So Chris Young bringing up Carson Beck, and I know we had a YouTube commenter bring him up as well earlier. Beck did travel tonight. Georgia brought 4 quarterbacks with it to Arkansas here. Beck was one of those. Beck does not get a chance to play this evening, but Beck was here for those people who may have been. I meant to bring that up earlier because someone commented on YouTube about that, but Beck was here. All right, anything else before we go? Let's find out if there's any more comments left here before we get out of here. A lot of them. They're coming fast and furious, but we're going to let folks get on with their night here a little bit. Terrence, how about a final thought from you? Georgia gets a win. Competition gets much stiffer next week. Give me your key takeaway from this evening, and, of course, a look ahead at what's going to happen next Saturday before we say goodbye here.
I just think this game was a tune-up for next week. A lot of young guys got an opportunity to play SEC football today. My guy Jermaine Burton had his first opportunity. The tight end Washington had his first opportunity. We got to see the tight ends get involved in the offense today. The offensive line, I predict, will play much better along with the running backs. I see a lot of people still ready to jump off James Cook bandwagon. I'm not one of those people to jump off his bandwagon. I just think he's too talented of a football player. We just got to put him in the right positions to be successful. The quarterback position, I just think we will play better. I think the coaches will put a game plan for whoever the quarterback may be. We don't know. I still like DeJuan Mathis. I like his tools. I like his skill set. So I'm just ready to see how much improved the team is overall from week 1 to week 2.
So that's the perspective of a former player. I'll give you the fans' perspective here for a moment. I think it's important for Georgia fans to stay calm this week. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. This is a team that's still got every goal that it started the season with still out in front of it. Maybe other teams like LSU and Oklahoma can't say that. So from that standpoint, Georgia finds itself in a pretty good spot. Obviously, there's also still a lot to be worked upon and a lot of players who are looking to play better in week 2 than they played in week 1. But don't give up on any of them because you may need them all, and you probably will in some form or fashion to get to where you want to go here this season. So I can't wait to see what happens next Saturday with Georgia and Auburn. Terrence, let me also say this to you. This has been as fun tonight as I thought it would be. I knew you'd be a great part of our post-game coverage. I've wanted you in this spot for a while. I'm glad to be able to have you. Thanks for sharing your analysis. Thanks for sharing your expertise. And frankly, thanks for us celebrating with us a great night here for Georgia football to get the 2020 season started off. We appreciate being a part of our Dog Nation post-game show. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be doing this. I was telling my wife this whole time, this is something I've been dreaming about to do for a long time, to talk Georgia football, pregame or postgame. So thank you again. As I've said earlier in the week, thank you for the opportunity, and I can't wait till next week to do this again.
A couple other thank yous for me. Michael Carvel back in Atlanta, trying to keep us on the air here as I kind of bounce around from the top of the stadium, and then it gets dark there. I come down here, and Michael just rolls with the punches no matter what, so we appreciate him. And also to our friends at the UGA bookstore, really a place that I love to get stocked up for all my pregame apparel, all my game day stuff. You may not be in the stadium this year, but you can look and be dressed like you are with all those great brands, the Nike, the 47 brand, the Vineyard Vines, the Peter Millar, the Cutter and Buck, all the great apparel makers who make really cool-looking UGA stuff. You can find that all at the UGA bookstore. You can also find me there next Saturday after the game. I'll see you there for our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA bookstore. Don't forget, Garrison Hurst, Vince Dooley, the legendary former player and former coach, signing autographs next Saturday before the Dogs and the Tigers from 5 to 7 p.m. Make sure you check out all the great coverage of what happened for Georgia against Arkansas today online at dognation.com. You can continue the conversation about today's game at the forum at forum.dognation.com. And I'll see you Monday morning at 10 a.m. for Dog Nation Daily to talk about everything that's unfolded here this weekend. Terrence Edwards, thank you to you. Michael Carville back in Atlanta, thanks as well. We'll see you next week here on the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore.